Black belt dared a black woman's daughter to play fight. What happened next left the entire dojo frozen. The call hit the room like a snap of bone. Bodies froze. Breath stopped. His voice cut through every inch of pride on the mat. A line up. The students moved fast, but one face stayed in his sights. He wanted a show. He wanted control. His eyes locked on the quiet girl near the edge. The one he thought wouldn't fight back. The one he picked to break. The room leaned toward trouble. He barked again, sharper this time, and his stare pinned her like a command. She didn't flinch. She didn't shift. Her breath stayed steady, slow, almost out of place in the rising heat of the room. He stepped closer. The crowd sensed something coming and pressed in without moving a foot. His voice dropped low, cutting straight at her. A step up, the words carried ego, not teaching. He wanted to play with her. He wanted her small. A ripple of whispers moved across the students. Some grinned. Some waited. Some waited. One senior student let out a short laugh. She won't last. The line hung in the air like a slap. Eyes slid to her, expecting shame, maybe fear, maybe a shake in her legs, but she didn't move. Her hands rested easy at her sides. Her chin stayed level. The silence around her grew tight. He circled once, hungry for the reaction she refused to give him. Then, come on, he said. Now for fun. Show them how tough you really are. The word fun twisted like a hook. A few students snickered. Another elbowed his friend. They wanted the fall. They wanted the show he promised. No one stepped in, not even the ones who knew better. Authority locked their mouths shut. Ohuti locked their mouths shut. Her mother watched from the back, jaw firm, shoulders drawn in. A quiet warning flashed in her eyes, but she stayed still. No one wanted to cross him. No one except the girl he thought he could push around. The pressure in the room thickened. The power sat in his hands, built by rank and loud rules. He wore it like armor and expected the room to follow his lead. Most did. Most always did. But the girl didn't blink. He didn't fold. She let the noise fade, like she was listening to something quieter inside herself. He stepped closer, almost chest to chest now, daring her. A step up, he repeated. He repeated. But don't waste my time. Her reply came soft. So soft the room leaned in to hear it. If you want fun, her voice didn't shake. It didn't crumble. It moved through the air like a small blade. Every whisper stopped. Even he paused, caught off guard by how calm it sounded. She finished the line a beat later. I'll give you a lesson. Dojo dropped into silence. Not the forced silence he demanded every day. This one came from shock, from the raw shift in the air. Heads turned toward him, waiting to see how he'd handle a challenge he didn't expect. He grinned wide and proud like her words meant nothing. He saw only a chance to crush her. She stepped forward without fear, each step measured, light controlled. The students leaned even closer, some hungry to watch her fall, some unsure now, sensing something off. Her breathing stayed steady. Her posture stayed balanced. A few sharp eyes noticed the strange calm in her stance, too clean for someone untrained, too sure for someone who should be scared. A pulse moved through the room, a feeling no one could name. Something about the way she placed her feet. Something about how her shoulders stayed loose. Something about how her eyes didn't follow his motions, but his center. A small thought whispered through the back row. This girl is not normal. He didn't hear it. He didn't feel the shift. He only saw a target. But the hint was there, quiet, subtle, easy to miss. A tiny adjustment in her wrist, a faint shift in her weight. Her breath held like she was counting something he couldn't see. A line of mastery hidden under silence. The mat felt heavy under them. The room forgot to breathe. Even he couldn't hide the spark of confusion that crossed his face for half a second. Something about her didn't fit the picture he had made. Then the tension snapped tight. And just before the moment broke, everything in the dojo seemed to pull inward, as if the walls themselves held their breath. Trouble was coming, the kind he never planned for. Rank ruled the room, and everyone knew it. His words sat heavy over every student. Respect the rank, he always said, even when respect was the last thing he gave. Students moved around him like he owned the floor. They bowed fast. They spoke soft. They watched his hands more than his lessons, because his hands showed mood better than his voice. When he walked, the air tightened. When he stopped, everyone braced. It wasn't discipline. It was control dressed up like teaching. Whispers floated under breaths when his back turned. He too hard today. He snapped again. Why does he talk like that? But no one said it loud. They feared his stare. They feared his temper. They feared his temper. They feared how quickly he called out anyone who slowed, flinched, or asked questions he didn't like. He had built a small world where rank meant everything and doubt meant disrespect. Students learned fast to hide doubt. Her mother stood near the wall, silent as stone. She didn't bow as deep as the others. She didn't laugh when he made jokes that cut too sharp. She watched him with a still face, like she had seen this story before, and waited for the next page to turn. Some said she once trained beside him. Some said she left after an argument. No one ever explained. No one knew the truth, but her calm around him held weight. She didn't fear him. She didn't praise him. She simply watched. Lena moved differently from the others. She was quiet, steady, never rushing to show anything. She helped younger students with soft lines like, lift your elbow a little, or remove your foot here. Her touch was light. Her words were plain. But her movements had this small precision that caught certain eyes. Some shrugged it off, some wondered. But he noticed. He didn't like it. Not because she disrespected him. She never did. He disliked the control she carried without noise. Quiet power annoyed him. It slipped past ego. Senior students echoed his tone. They wanted to impress him. They repeated his lines. They acted harder when he watched. A push more. A don't be soft. A don't question. Their voices carried pride but not skill. They watched Lena with small sneers. She didn't rise to it. She stayed calm, which only made them push harder. One of them said earlier, he went too far today, but even that came out in a whisper, scared to be heard. Only Key stepped close enough to show real concern. He went too far today, he repeated softly, hoping she'd agree. She didn't speak. Irene muttered from the side, this isn't discipline, this is show. She didn't hide her voice well, and a few heads snapped toward her, but she held her ground. She had seen enough dojos to know the difference between teaching and ego ruled here. He spotted Lena helping a younger student again. Her hands guided the kid through a small balance shift. Clean, smooth, exact. He frowned, a deep, sharp pull in his brow. Her quiet control irritated him more than any loud challenge. He wanted to own every skill in the room. She moved like she didn't need his hand. Rumors drifted again, rumors about why her mother walked out years ago. Something about a lesson that went wrong. Something about lines crossed. The old stories pushed new tension into the walls, and the air changed shape around them. The students felt it. They traded looks. They waited for something they couldn't name. He stepped close again. "You don't need to prove anything," he whispered. Her answer was simple. He won't stop. His steps circled the mat like a man hungry for more power. The students sensed it too. Something building. Something close. Then Lena stepped toward the mat again, calm as ever. The room tightened around her like a held breath. Old tensions rose like slow smoke after that moment. Students tried to go on with drills, but their eyes kept sliding toward Lena and her mother. Something unspoken moved between them, a memory others could only guess at. Rumors grew sharper now. They whispered about a day long ago when Maya stood against him in front of the whole room. They said he pushed a rule too far. They said she refused to bow and walked out without fear. No one knew the full truth, but the pieces felt close. Kai watched Lena from across the mat. He saw the stiff breath she held when Crane's name came up. He saw the way her shoulders stayed level, even when others pushed jokes her way. She trained for calm, but this calm carried weight. It warned of something deeper. Irene noticed too. She stood with arms crossed and eyes sharp. She had trained under many teachers, and she knew the difference between power used for guidance and power used to crush. She whispered to a boy beside her that skill meant control, not loud orders. He nodded slowly. Crane moved along the line, checking stances with a stiff jaw. His eyes cut toward Maya for a beat, then fell back on Lena with a thin glare. He did not like unfinished business. He did not like quiet students who held themselves with dignity. He did not grant them. The room shifted whenever he turned. Students straightened their backs and tried to look focused. But the tension kept sliding toward Lena, pulled by something old and unresolved. Even the younger kids felt it. They watched her with wide eyes, sensing a storm forming under her steady breath. Her mother stepped closer now, not enough to draw attention, but enough for Lena to feel the presence behind her. A long breath passed between them, silent but full. Maya had seen this pattern before. She knew the signs of a teacher losing balance and grabbing harder at control. She hoped Lena would turn away from it, but she also knew her daughter's steady nature. When something crossed a line, Lena never let it stand. She did not shout. She did not show. She did not show anger. She simply moved with purpose born from something Maya had taught long ago. The room sensed that purpose rising, though no one could yet name what it meant. It waited quietly. The air held a strange mix of fear and curiosity as the last drills ended. Students stretched, but no one really focused on the movements. Their eyes kept cutting toward him, then toward Lena, then toward Maya. Something was shifting, and everyone felt it in their bones. Crane paced with long, heavy steps, acting calm but looking ready to claim the room again. His voice barked short orders that didn't quite land the same way as before. Some students followed out of habit, but others hesitated. They had watched the earlier exchange. They had seen the way Lena stood still under pressure. Now her breath never shook. Her breath never shook. They started to wonder what kind of training gave someone that kind of control. He stayed near the edge, worrying with every breath. He wanted to pull her away, but he knew she would not listen. She had already made her choice. The moment she said, "He won't stop," something in her path locked into place. Irene walked closer and lowered her voice. "This is building too fast," she muttered. "He's not correcting anyone. He's looking for a target." Kai nodded, eyes tight. He's watching her again. Irene glanced at Lena. The girl stood with calm shoulders, hands resting loose by her sides as if the rising tension didn't touch her. But Irene saw something most others missed, a razor-thin line of readiness in her stance, the kind that didn't come from drills here, the kind taught by someone who believed skill should not shout. Crane finally turned toward the center and clapped once, loud and sharp. "Everyone back on the mat," he said. His tone carried pride, not teaching. He scanned the faces until his gaze landed on Lena again. A slow smile pulled at his mouth. "Some of you need to learn respect," he said. "And some of you think you can stand against rank." A few students shifted uncomfortably. They understood who he meant. Maya stepped forward half a step, but Lena lifted a hand slightly, stopping her without turning around. Maya froze, breath tight. She whispered to Irene, "She's going to face him again." Irene's reply came low and certain. She already decided. Lena moved toward the mat with quiet steps. No rush, no fear. Just a steady path. The room tightened like a held exhale, knowing the next moment would break whatever balance remained. He called her to the mat again with a sharp flick of his hand. No explanation, no warm-up. The students froze mid-step. They knew that signal. It wasn't a lesson. It was a display. He stood in the center, feet planted heavy, chest lifted like he owned every breath in the room. Lena walked forward without hurry. Her posture stayed level. Her eyes didn't rise to meet his. That alone bothered him. He wanted fear. He wanted the small flinch that fed his pride. She gave him nothing. "A light spar," he said, but his voice carried that edge everyone recognized, the one that meant pain, not practice. Students swallowed hard. One whispered, "Not light," but the sound died before it reached a second ear. He waited for her stance, smirking like the end was already written. She lifted her hands slow, simple, clean, no show, just balance. That made a few students tilt their heads. She didn't move like a beginner. He struck first. Not a punch, not a real technique. A slap, loud, sharp. Made for the crowd, it cracked the air and drew quick laughs from the seniors. He liked that reaction. He wanted more. He swung again, another slap, bigger, angled so it echoed. The room reacted the way he hoped. Grins, winces, whispers about how she wouldn't last. She blocked quietly. No big motion, no rush defense, just a clean lift of her forearm that met his strike and softened it without effort. She took the sting but didn't break posture. She breathed once, steady. She counted something inside, maybe beats, maybe breaths, but her face stayed flat. He didn't notice the precision. He only saw that she didn't fold. He stepped in closer, voice low. "Smile when I say so." The seniors laughed again. Power tilted his way. He tried to force the pace, slapping high, pushing low, hands flashing with loud intent. She absorbed each wave with small shifts, letting his force pass by instead of fighting it head-on. Then it happened. Small, quick. Most of the room almost missed it. When he swung hard at her shoulder, she didn't just block. Her wrist turned with a sharp, exact motion. She redirected his arm off its path, not by strength, but by angle. His balance slipped half an inch, enough to stun him, enough to make two students in the back straighten fast. It was clean, too clean. He froze for a breath. Confusion flashed across his face, gone just as fast. He laughed loud, desperate, covering the crack in his pride. "Lucky," he barked. but the laugh carried a thin edge. Something rattled under it. She didn't chase the moment. She didn't show pride or fear. She simply reset her stance, quiet as before, and that shook him more than the redirect. He tightened his control. His shoulders squared. His movements turned harder, not teaching, but proving. The room felt it, his intent shifting from spar to domination. Students watched with wide eyes now, unsure if they had just seen skill or accident. Either way, the balance had shifted just a little, and that tiny shift burned in him like a spark he didn't know how to stamp out. Whispers broke out before the mat even cleared. Students gathered in small knots, speaking under breaths, glancing at him, then at Lena, then back again. The energy felt different, not loud, not bold, quiet and sharp, like the room was trying to hide a secret it had just witnessed. Some praised him out of habit. He handled it, they muttered, though their voices shook a little. Others questioned what they saw. That redirect, did you see that? One whispered. Another replied, she didn't even blink. No one said it too loud. Doubt was dangerous here. Ty slipped to Lena's side as she stepped off the mat. You okay? He asked, voice barely a thread. She didn't answer. She didn't need to. Her posture told him she was steady, but her silence told him she was thinking. Students stared at her more now, confusion mixing with curiosity. They had expected her to break. Instead, she stayed calm. Too calm. Crane stepped forward with a grin that didn't reach his eyes. He wanted the room back. He wanted control sealed tight again. He reached into a small box near the wall and pulled out a loose rank patch. He didn't offer it to her. He slapped it against her chest like a joke trophy. Here, he said loud enough for the whole room to hear. A gift, since you like touching higher rank. Laughter rippled across the floor. The patch slid down her uniform and fell at her feet. She didn't pick it up. He wasn't finished. He tilted his head toward her mother and raised his voice. Your mother walked out, you know. Couldn't handle real training. His smile spread wider. And maybe the apple fell far. The room froze. Even the seniors fell silent. Maya stepped forward before anyone else could move. Her voice cut clean through the hush. You don't know why, she said, each word steady as stone. You never did. The silence thickened. Students stared. No one expected her to speak like that. Crane's smile twitched, just a bit, like her tone hit a sore spot he hadn't covered. Lena's hand trembled for a moment. Barely. A tiny shake, then gone. Her breath smoothed out again. She didn't pick up the rank patch. She didn't argue. She didn't rise to his bait. She simply turned and walked away, her steps even, her spine straight. The message was clear. She would not play his game. Crane smirked as she left, mistaking silence for defeat. He rolled his shoulders like he had already won the day. He said to no one and everyone. Respect comes from rank, not noise. But his voice held a thin crack that only the closest students caught. Whispers followed Lena down the hall. Some curious, some nervous, some afraid for what might come next. Did she block him on purpose? Did you see his face when she moved his arm? Her mom looked like she knew something. The rumors spread fast, feeding off each breath. Kai watched her go jaw tight. He knew she wasn't walking away from fear. She walked away because she chose not to break the peace. Yet, Irene stood beside him, arms crossed, eyes narrow. He's pushing too far, she muttered. And he thinks she's small enough to crush. She swallowed hard. He thinks he won. Irene shook her head. He didn't watch her hands. The whispers swelled again, low and tense, filling the room like wind before a storm. Everyone felt it now. Something was shifting, and the next move would not be quiet. Ty caught up to her first, slipping through the doorway before it closed. Irene followed right behind him, breath tight, eyes sharp from everything she had just seen. The locker room felt colder than the mat, quieter too, but the tension clung to the walls like old dust. Lena stood near the bench, untying her belt with slow, steady hands. No tremble, no rush, just calm action, like nothing outside had touched her. Kai stepped closer. Please walk away, he said. His voice wasn't soft this time. It was scared. It was scared. He's not teaching anymore. He's trying to break you. Irene nodded, arms folded tight. You saw how he slapped you. That wasn't training. That was ego. You don't owe him anything. You can walk out right now. She looked at the door like she expected him to storm in at any second. Lena didn't answer. She folded her belt once, twice, each line perfect. Her silence made Kai's stomach twist. Say something, he whispered. Tell me you're not going back out there. She finally looked at them, eyes clear, breath even. I'm not walking away, she said. The words were calm, but not stubborn, rooted like a truth she had accepted long before, today. Irene let out a short breath of frustration. Why? He'll hurt you. Lena shook her head once. Only if I let him. She stared. You think you can stop him? He's stronger. He's faster. She cut him off without raising her voice. Her strength doesn't matter if the door is closed. The line confused them both. Irene tilted her head. What door? Lena didn't explain. She reached for a towel hanging on the hook. She folded it with the same clean precision she used on the mat. Then, in one smooth motion, she slid her fingers under the edge and performed a small drill. Nothing flashy, nothing loud. A twist, a pull, a release. The towel reacted like it had weight. The motion was too clean, too exact, too practiced. Irene's eyes widened. That, Irene whispered. That was no beginner move. Chai stepped back a half-inch, trying to process what he saw. Who taught you that? He asked. He hesitated only a breath. My mother. The room went still. Irene exchanged a glance with Kai, both understanding at the same time why Maya watched Crane with that cold, steady silence. This wasn't new. This wasn't random. There was history in their movements, in their stares, in their breath. Rumors had circled for years about why Maya left. Whispers about private training. Whispers about a method Crane couldn't touch. Now those whispers had shape. They had proof. Kai rubbed his forehead. If you have that kind of skill, why not just show him and end this? Because showing is not the same as teaching, Lena said. And teaching is not the same as ego. Irene exhaled slowly. He's going to push harder now. The whole room felt that. Lena nodded once. I know. Kai looked at the doorway again, dread rising in his chest. The showdown's coming, isn't it? Lena tied her belt again, each loop clean. Tied her belt again, each loop clean. Only when needed. Her voice carried a quiet promise, and the room felt smaller for it. A new buzz rolled down the hallway, whispers spreading fast. Something was changing, and the dojo could feel it. He called the class back fast the next day, louder than usual, like he needed to prove the room still belonged to him. Students lined up with stiff backs and quiet throats. No one spoke. No one wanted to trigger him. He walked the line with a sharp stare, hunting for a place to land his authority. His gaze slid past Lena at first, then circled back, lingering just long enough to stir unease. The pressure built before he even opened his mouth. Come here, he snapped, pointing at a junior boy near the end of the line. The kid stepped forward too slow for his liking. Crane pounced on that. Faster, he barked. The boy moved quicker, panicked. Students shifted uncomfortably. They'd seen this before. His way of showing dominance under the mask of teaching. He grabbed the boy's wrist and twisted it up high, lifting him to his toes. You obey, he said loudly. You don't drag your feet. The boy winced, a sound too soft to ignore. Crane pushed harder anyway. A ripple of anger rolled through the line. Irene frowned. Kai clenched his hands. Maya inhaled sharply. Lena stepped forward before she let herself think twice. Her voice cut clean through the tension. That's not discipline. That's not discipline. The whole room froze. Crane turned his head slowly, eyes cold. What did you say? She didn't repeat it. She didn't need to. Her stance said everything. Level shoulders, steady breath, calm eyes unshaken by his glare. That alone struck him deeper than any shouted challenge. He shoved the junior boy away with a flick of his hand and pointed straight at her. Fine, he said, voice dripping with mock sweetness. Show us how women fight. He spread his arms wide like a performer asking for applause. Let's all learn something today. Laughter erupted. Harder this time. Crueler. A few students even clapped, thinking they were joining in harmless fun. But the fun in his voice wasn't fun at all. It was bait, sharp bait. Lena glanced at her mother. Maya's jaw tightened and her eyes carried a silent warning. He wants to drag you down to his level. Lena breathed once slow, then stepped forward. She didn't argue. She didn't defend herself. She simply accepted. Crane called the same junior boy back to the center. Attack her, he ordered. The kid looked terrified. Go on, show the class how strong you are, make it look good. The boy hesitated, but rules here weren't built on choice. He rushed toward Lena with an uncertain push. She moved 1 inch, just one, and redirected him. Her hand caught his wrist lightly, her body turning with a smooth pivot. She guided him down with a clean hold that didn't hurt, didn't force, didn't show off. It was controlled, exact, absolute. The crowd shifted. Whispers scattered across the room like startled birds. The boy sat blinking at the mat, confused but unharmed. Lena released him gently and stepped back. Crane's face twitched. Just a flicker, a break in the mask. He clapped his hands sharply, too loud, trying to pull attention back to himself. "Enough," he barked. "Back in line." His voice cracked on the last word. Students heard it. They traded looks. His authority felt thinner. The juniors drifted away from Lena, not out of fear, but respect. They hadn't seen control like that before. Control without violence, control without ego. Crane snapped again. "Order! Now!" He needed the sound to cover the slip he felt inside. But the room no longer leaned his way, not fully. Something had shifted. Lena's calm stood taller than his shout. Even the seniors felt the tilt. The balance in the dojo moved 1 inch, just like her redirect, and that 1 inch scared him more than a full rebellion. Respect, quiet and unexpected, began to drift toward her. Students didn't say it out loud. They didn't dare. But they felt it in their chests, in their breath, in the way they watched her now with widened eyes. He felt it too, felt it slipping out of his hands, and he wasn't going to let that happen without a fight. Class ended on a strange note, half fear, half curiosity. Students lingered instead of rushing to change. They kept glancing at Lena, then at her mother, then at the mat where a simple, clean hold had turned the room on its axis. Crane stormed into his office without a word, slamming the door hard enough to rattle the lockers. That alone told everyone the balance had shifted again. Maya waited until the crowd thinned, then touched Lena's elbow. "Come," she said quietly, and Lena followed her into a corner of the hallway where the walls kept conversations tight. Maya's breath was controlled, but her eyes carried the weight of something long buried. "You need to know the truth about him," she began. Her voice was low, not shaking, but tense, like a rope pulled too tight. Lena didn't interrupt. She stood still, shoulders relaxed, waiting. Maya looked toward Crane's closed office. "Years ago, he asked me to join his inner circle, said he wanted strong students around him." Her jaw tightened. But strength wasn't what he wanted. He wanted obedience, blind obedience. No questions. Lena watched her mother's hands, seeing the small clench and release in her fingers. Maya almost never showed that kind of tension. "I challenged him," Maya said, "not in front of everyone, but in training. I told him his methods would hurt people, that he punished weakness instead of guiding it. He didn't like that." She paused. "He crossed a line. I walked out, and he told everyone I couldn't handle real training." Lena breathed in slowly, letting the words settle. She had guessed pieces, but hearing it plain hit deeper. Maya continued. "I trained you because I didn't want you shaped by someone like him. I wanted you to learn control, real control, the kind that protects, not humiliates." Her eyes softened for a moment. "I taught you the style my teacher passed to me, a quiet method, precise, clean, hidden from people who use power for Flashbacks flickered between them like quick shadows. Maya guiding Lena's small hands through a wrist twist. Maya correcting her stance with a gentle push. Maya whispering, "Skill is not for pride. Skill is for stopping harm." Short moments, sharp as strikes, carried from mother to daughter. Lena nodded once. "I know." Maya studied her face. "I saw how you moved today. You used the hold exactly as I taught you. Clean, safe, controlled." She stepped closer. "But understand this. He will push harder now. He sees you as a threat." Lena's reply came steady. "I use skill to stop harm." "Good," Maya said. "Because he will try to make this personal." Lena didn't argue. Her breath stayed even. Her posture stayed calm. But there was a quiet steel under her words now. "I won't let him hurt anyone else." Mia exhaled, half worry, half pride. "Then you need to set your terms, not his." Lena looked toward the mat, where the echo of her earlier movement still seemed to hang in the air. She nodded again, the decision already forming behind her calm eyes. Around them, the dojo hummed with new energy. Students whispered in corners. Seniors stared at the door to Crane's office, unsure of what would come next. The room felt like it was shifting, inch by inch, away from the old rules and towards something unfamiliar. Irene passed by and lowered her voice. "Whatever you're planning, it's working. The room's changing." Lena didn't answer. She didn't need to. Her silence carried a direction now. Change was coming, whether Crane wanted it or not. And everyone in the dojo felt the ground starting to move beneath their feet. He came out of his office near closing time. Steps loud, chest high, eyes burning with the kind of heat that tried too hard to look calm. Students straightened fast, no one spoke. Everyone felt the storm he carried with him, tight and sharp, like he had spent the whole break building a new plan. His gaze found Lena in an instant. The room stiffened. "Tomorrow," he announced, voice echoing off every wall, "we're holding a big demonstration." He didn't ask. He declared, the words dropped like heavy stones. Full dojo watching. Visitors, parents, seniors from other schools. He paused, letting the weight sink in. "We'll show them what real training looks like." Whispers rose like sparks. A demonstration meant risk, pressure, public judgment. Students traded tense glances, each knowing this wasn't about teaching. It was about reclaiming control. Crane pointed at Lena. "And you?" His smile tightened. "You'll show what your kind can do." The room froze. Even he seemed to hear the edge in his own words. Irene's face darkened. His fists curled tight. Maya stepped forward half an inch before stopping herself. Everyone felt the line he had crossed. Lena didn't flinch. She didn't blink. She stepped forward with a steady breath and answered in a voice that held no fear, no heat, just truth. "I will show skill," she said, "not show off moves." The line landed like a slap made of ice. Sharp, controlled, unshakably calm. Some students inhaled sharply, others held their breath. Crane's smile twitched again. He had expected panic or anger. Not control. Kai moved toward her, voice low. "We've got your back," he whispered. His eyes showed worry he couldn't hide. "But he'll break rules tomorrow, you know he will." Lena nodded once. "I accept the risk." Maya joined them, her voice barely above a whisper. "Be careful. He's losing grip. Cornered people swing wild." Lena's answer was soft but certain. "I know." Students crowded into tight clusters, whispering predictions. Some thought she would be Some thought she would surprise everyone again. Some weren't sure which outcome scared them more. The air grew thick with tension, almost buzzing. Crane looked around the room, pleased with the fear he had stirred. "Tomorrow decides everything," he said, letting the line hang like a threat. Lena stepped back to her place in line, shoulders calm, breath even. Around her, the dojo trembled with the weight of what was coming. The dojo packed tighter than anyone had seen in years. Students stood shoulder to shoulder, back stiff, breath shallow. Parents lined the walls, whispering about the big match they were promised. Older students from other schools watched with sharp eyes, waiting to see what kind of show Crane planned to deliver. The energy pulsed like a drumbeat under every foot. Crane stepped out first. His uniform was sharp, his smile sharper. He carried himself like a king entering his court, chin high, chest broad. Confidence stretched across his face like paint. The crowd straightened as if pulled by strings. He liked that reaction. He soaked in every bowed head and tight breath. Then Lena stepped in. Not loud, not bold, not dramatic. She walked with soft, balanced steps, her gaze steady on the mat. Her breathing didn't shift under the crowd's eyes. She didn't puff her chest or scan the room for support. Her presence was simple, clean, controlled. So controlled that the room's energy shifted just a little when she stopped at the center. A ripple of quiet respect spread through students who had watched her silently for days. Crane saw that ripple, his jaw clenched. He pointed toward her and spoke loud enough for everyone to hear. "We go quick," he said, "no crying." His words dripped with pride, with the promise of humiliation. Lena's answer dropped just as clearly. No lies, murmurs broke across the room. That single line, so soft and sharp, cut deeper than any shout. Crane didn't wait. He lunged first, attacking with the same flashy speed he always used when he wanted to impress an audience. His arm sliced through the air in a loud motion meant to shock, not teach. The crowd leaned forward. Lena didn't meet force with force. She stepped aside, barely a whisper of motion, redirecting his arm with a clean hand that shifted his balance half a step off center. Nothing dramatic, nothing showy, just enough. He swung again, faster, louder. She redirected again. A few older students blinked, leaning closer. Her movements weren't random. They were precise, efficient, too efficient. Crane's strikes turned wild, trying to corner her, trying to make her flinch. She didn't. She breathed in steady lines, letting his motions pass through her space without landing clean. Her feet moved in soft, exact arcs, guiding him into empty spots like she was closing invisible doors. The crowd began to whisper. Crane grew louder, flashier. He stomped the mat to make noise. He struck with theatrics instead of skill. He wanted applause. He wanted fear. He wanted dominance painted in big strokes. Instead, he missed. A sharp gasp shot across the room as he lunged hard and met only air. Lena's sidestep came at the exact moment his foot planted wrong. His balance faltered. Students stared as a senior whispered, "He never misses," he snarled. Low enough for only her to hear. "Stand still," Lena answered with calm steel. "Control yourself," the line rattled him. Frustration twisted his features. Then he broke the rules. He grabbed her wrist with a hard, illegal twist meant to force pain and submission. Gasps erupted. A few parents murmured in shock. Even some seniors shifted uncomfortably. They knew what that hold meant, and it wasn't part of any demonstration. But Lena didn't react with pain. She didn't fight his strength. She didn't try to overpower him. Instead, her free hand moved in a small, exact motion, sliding along his forearm, redirecting his grip at the angle he didn't expect. The hold broke, not by force but by precision. His eyes widened just for a heartbeat. She stepped back once, breathing steady, not attacking, not running, just controlling space. The room fell into an uneasy hush. Students began to watch her, not him. Crane charged again, louder, harder, his face bright with anger hidden under performance. Every step he took screamed ego. Lena shifted once more, quiet, almost gentle. And with that one movement, something old surfaced, a technique almost no one recognized anymore. A sharp wrist release, clean, perfect, controlled. Older students froze. One whispered, "That move. That's from the old line." The dojo fell silent. Chairs creaked. Breath caught in throats. Crane didn't hear the whispers. He only felt the fear growing somewhere deep beneath his pride. And that fear drove him into his next reckless attack. Crane roared forward with everything he had left. Speed, size, rank, ego blending into one wild rush. His foot slammed the mat. His shoulders rolled high. His arm cut toward her with the force of a man trying to crush doubt itself. This wasn't a demonstration anymore. It wasn't even control. It was panic shaped like power. Lena didn't meet it. She stepped into the attack, not away from it, closing the distance with one calm glide. His momentum crashed into empty space as she redirected his center, with a soft pressure at his elbow. His balance collapsed forward, just enough to break his structure. Gasps rippled again. Crane stumbled, caught himself and whipped around with a furious swing. "Stand still," he barked, voice cracking under the strain. Lena's answer fell like a quiet blade. "Mastery protects," the crowd stiffened. Even parents who didn't know martial arts understood the weight behind those words. She wasn't mocking him. She wasn't bragging. She was telling the truth he had forgotten. He lunged again, desperate to reclaim the room. But the room no longer leaned his way. Students watched her, only her. Their eyes tracked her precision, her calm, her discipline. They started to see the difference between noise and skill. Crane struck high. She slipped under it. He swept low. She lifted her foot an inch. He grabbed again, trying another illegal hold. She broke it with a small wrist turn that dissolved his grip like sand falling through fingers. Gasps grew louder. One older visitor whispered, "That control, that's Maya's lineage." Another breathed impossible. That line was lost. Lena didn't hear them. She stayed inside the center of her breath, moving with exact balance. Each step she took made his attacks louder, sloppier, more exposed. He felt it too. Panic flickered behind his eyes. Then it happened. He charged in one final burst, rage, shame, and fear mixing into one reckless strike. He swung wide, trying to catch her off guard, trying to end it in one big move. She didn't counter, she redirected. Her hand traced a soft line across his wrist, guiding his energy forward. Her body pivoted with a quiet precision that made the entire crowd lean in. And then, clean as a snap, a sharp wrist release opened his stance, dropped his guard, and pulled him directly into a controlled pin. One smooth motion, one breath, one final shift. Crane hit the mat, not slammed, not thrown, placed. His arm folded behind him in a hold he couldn't break. His chest pressed lightly to the floor. He could breathe, but he could not move. The dojo fell silent, completely silent. The kind of silence that holds truth. Students stared, mouths open. Seniors stood frozen. Parents blinked in disbelief. Visitors straightened without meaning to. Irene let out a breath she had been holding for minutes. Kai's hands shook. Crane tried to lift himself, tried to twist, tried to break the hold. Nothing worked. Lena held him with no anger, no pride, no force, only control. Crane's voice came out broken. Who are you two? The words stumbled, cracking open under the weight of the moment. Lena's reply was calm, final, clean. Mastery keeps others safe, not smallness like yours. Her voice echoed in the silence. He stopped struggling, not because he chose peace, but because the room no longer stood with him. He saw it in their eyes. The fear he used to command was gone. Students didn't look at him with respect anymore. They looked at him like someone revealed. A crack spread across his pride. Lena released him, not harshly, not triumphantly, just enough for him to rise if he chose. He pushed himself up slowly, shoulders shaking, breath uneven. For the first time, he didn't look like a master. The room held its breath for one long beat. No shout ended the match, no victory pose, just shock, and the heavy, undeniable shift of power settling into the quiet. The room didn't move at first, it just breathed, slow, uneven, unsure, like everyone had forgotten what came next after truth hit this hard. Then whispers rose in small bursts. Did that just happen? No way. He let her pin him. She controlled him, clean, no force. Students shifted, stunned. Some stepped back as if giving the moment space. Some leaned forward to understand it better. A few seniors looked pale, realizing the rank they worshipped had cracked right in front of them. Chi rushed to Lena's side, eyes wide, voice shaky. Are you okay? He looked her up and down like he expected hidden injuries. Lena breathed once. I am. He is fine. Her voice stayed calm, steady, like the match hadn't touched her. But Chi felt his heartbeat racing all the same. Irene stepped up next, nodding in solid respect. That wasn't a fight, she said. That was true. Her eyes flicked toward Crane, who was still kneeling on one knee, trying and failing to look collected. People saw everything. Crane tried to rise fully, but his legs shook under him. His pride held him upright more than his balance. Sweat rolled down his jaw. His chest rose too fast. He looked around the room, searching for the obedience he had always counted on. He didn't find it. Maya stepped forward, calm and firm, her presence straightening the air around her. Enough, she said. Not to Lena, to him, he stiffened. She cut him off. Not now, he closed his mouth. That alone sent another ripple through the room. Students watched with quiet shock. Many had never seen anyone stop him with only a few words. Then the council members, two older black belts who rarely stepped in, arrived at the doorway. They must have heard the noise. Their faces tightened when they saw Crane's state and Lena's calm posture. One of them stepped forward. Explain, he said. Crane lifted his chin. It was a loyalty test. The words came fast, sloppy. I wanted to see how she'd handle pressure. The council member's eyes narrowed. That was not a test. That was misuse of rank. His tone didn't rise, but the weight behind it was enough to make several students straighten. Maya stepped in, voice firm. He wasn't teaching. He was punishing fear. Gasps fluttered across the room. Crane turned sharply. You don't understand, no, Maya said. You don't. Her words landed hard, cleaner than any strike. Students looked from Maya to Lena to Crane, finally seeing the pattern they had ignored for too long. The fear that had held their tongues began to loosen. Another council member lifted a hand. Emergency meeting, she said. Now the dojo must answer for this. Crane tried to protest. You can't. We can, she said. And we must. Students exchanged glances. The shift felt real, solid, inevitable. Everything he had built on intimidation and pride was beginning to crumble right in front of him. And Lena stood in the middle of the storm, calm as ever, breathing steady while the dojo began to reshape itself around truth. The council moved quickly, calling every senior student into a tight circle near the center of the mat. The rest of the dojo watched from the edges, tension stretched thin. Crane stood stiff among them, shoulders squared with effort, but the crack in his confidence showed in every twitch of his jaw. Lena remained still behind the group, breath steady, posture calm. She didn't need to speak. The room remembered what her silence had done. A council elder stepped forward. This dojo is built on respect, he said. Not fear, not pride, not misuse of rank. His gaze locked on Crane. You crossed lines today. Crane swallowed hard. I said it was a lesson. I was testing what? Irene said from the edge. Her voice cut through the circle like a blade. Testing who would break first, testing who feared you enough to stay quiet. Students murmured, agreeing now that the first voice had dared to speak. The truth they had swallowed for so long finally rose to the surface. Chi stepped slightly forward, voice shaking but firm. You were hurting people, not training them. Crane opened his mouth again, but the words that came out lacked conviction. I pushed too hard, but it was for discipline. Maya stepped in, her tone cool and steady. Discipline guides. It does not crush. She met his eyes without blinking. You forgot the difference. The council exchanged looks. Then one elder spoke. Crane, effective immediately. You lose certain duties. No more public tests, no more solo decision-making. Every demonstration, every discipline call will go through the council. Gasps moved across the room. This wasn't expulsion, but it was a clear strike against his unchecked power. Crane bowed his head slightly, not out of humility, but because he didn't have ground to stand on. Some students stepped away from him, unsure. Others stepped closer to Lena, even without meaning to. The balance had shifted, visible as breath. A council member turned to Lena. You showed control, precision, respect. She paused. If you want rank? No, Lena said, calm and immediate. I don't want rank. The room absorbed the line in stunned silence. She continued. Skill without care is just power. Her tone didn't rise, yet it carried through the room like a command. If this dojo wants to grow, it must protect students, not display them. Maya nodded with quiet pride. She speaks truth. The council elder faced Mia next. Will you join the new council? We need balance. Maya hesitated only a breath before answering. Yes, but not to punish him. To fix what broke. Irene exhaled, relief softening her shoulders. Today wasn't about toughness, she said to the students. It was about trust. People nodded. Real nods. Honest ones. Crane stood alone now, the crowd no longer feeding his power. He looked smaller, not because he had been defeated, but because the room finally saw him clearly. Lena turned to her mother, and the two walked toward the door. No cheers, no victory grin, just steady steps. The dojo stayed quiet as they left, but the silence felt different now. Not fear, but balance returning. Behind them, the room began to heal. The dojo felt different in the days that followed. Quieter, not empty. Just clearer, like the air finally had space to breathe. Students bowed with real intent instead of fear. Seniors corrected juniors with softer voices. Even the mat seemed lighter under their feet, no longer weighed down by pride disguised as discipline. People spoke differently too. They whispered less about rank and more about responsibility. They talked about control, not dominance. They remembered how Lena moved that day, steady, calm, certain, and they tried to shape their own training around that kind of balance. Her lessons spread without a speech. It lived in small choices. A gentler hold, a slower breath, a steady stance. The elders repeated one line often. Ego shouts, mastery stays quiet. Students nodded, understanding now the power behind silence. They had witnessed it. They had felt it in the room when Lena pinned Crane without anger, without force, without pride. True strength didn't need noise. It shaped the space around it with presence alone. Respect changed shape too. It stopped flowing automatically toward rank and started flowing toward character. Students bowed deeper to those who protected others, not those who barked the loudest. They listened more when someone corrected them with patience. They learned that skill wasn't measured by who could hit hardest, but by who could keep the room safe. Crane practiced alone now, not to prove something, not to win. He moved slower, breathing through each strike, replaying moments he once ignored. For the first time, he trained without an audience. Some students peeked in now and then. They didn't see the old sharpness. They saw someone trying to understand what he had lost and why. Lena didn't boast about what happened. She didn't repeat the story or accept praise. She trained with the younger students, guiding them with quiet hands and soft steps. They watched her with new respect, the kind that grows from truth, not fear. They tried to copy her calm, her patience, her balance. Maya's lesson echoed through the room more than any of Crane's commands ever had. Control saves people. Students repeated it to themselves in drills. It hung in their breath when they stumbled. It shaped their choices when they partnered up. It became a kind of unspoken rule. Strength must protect, or it isn't strength at all. When Lena left at the end of each day, she walked out without fanfare, No smile, no victory posture, no lingering glance. Just quiet footsteps, and the truth she left behind stayed long after she passed the doorway. Pride breaks, honor stays.